Have you heard about Global Poker? Global Poker is the fastest growing card room in the US today, and it's available online at globalpoker.com. Global Poker is a social poker site that offers safe and secure cash out options by using their unique and patented sweepstakes model. Players can compete in big guaranteed tournaments, jackpot sit-and-goes, or cash games featuring Hold'em, Omaha, and even Crazy Pineapple. Don't wait. Check out Global Poker today.
Poker Stories is an audio series that features casual interviews with some of the game's best players and personalities. Each episode highlights a well-known figure in the poker world and dives deep into their favorite tales both on and off the feld.
Welcome back to Poker Stories, a podcast brought to you by Card Player, the Poker Authority, and hosted by me, Julio Rodriguez. This is episode number 99, and it features high-stakes tournament pro Seth Davies. Seth is 31 years old and is one of the rising stars of the high roller circuit. Originally from Oregon, Seth got started with poker when he was just in high school. At that time, he was a serious baseball player, and he was recruited to play for the College of Southern Nevada, right here in Las Vegas. You may remember that is the same school that Bryce Harper briefly played for. Well, unfortunately, Seth never really got to see the field because he was plagued with injuries. He tried several comebacks, but kept getting setbacks and more surgeries. But all of that time he spent recovering was also time spent playing poker. He started with sit-and-goes and was eventually making enough to support himself, even moving out of the country to keep playing online after Black Friday. In 2016, he started playing more live tournaments, and that's when he started to put together some big scores. Seth has $8.8 million in total live tournament earnings, including a $1 million score in the Super High Roller Bowl Bahamas, and a third place showing at the WPT 5 Diamond World Poker Classic for $877K, and a runner-up finish in the EPT Barcelona 50K High Roller for another $800,000. Those are the stats. That is enough intro, and this is my conversation with Seth Davies. I'm here with Seth Davies. How are you doing, Seth?
Not bad. How you doing, man?
Good. You riding out the lockdown with some online poker?
Yeah, I mean, as far as online poker goes, it's as good as it's ever been. Like every single day there's pretty high stakes to play. It's been pretty awesome, really.
Is this the biggest boom you've ever seen? I mean, you are 31, so you are, I guess, maybe the youngest of the people who got to experience maybe the tail end of the moneymaker boom. But I'm not sure you ever saw it booming, like that.
Yeah, I would say I was definitely around when, like the online, in the what you could, I guess, call the golden days of online poker, but
Back
even
when it was
then,
easy.
yeah, exactly. But the whole complexion of it was so different back then. Like the stakes were all much smaller. Like it was very good because you could just play these enormous, $200, $500 tournaments every day and like make a bunch of living. Which they're not tiny tournaments, but you could really work your way up from playing $1 tournaments. Where now, like as everybody's kind of grown older and a lot of money has funneled up to like the players that have gone older, it's more just like higher stakes focused, But yeah, as far as like high stakes online, it's booming as good as ever.
Do you mean like there's no middle class in online poker anymore? Like there's just too big of a jump from micro to what somebody would consider the livable playing wages?
Yeah, I would say
or
that
stakes, I should say.
Yeah, that class has definitely shrunk a ton, which it was too bad because it was, and that was this awesome thing about poker was that you could start with virtually no money. They had free rolls online that you could play and win $5 and potentially spin it up to be like a full-time job making good money, and I mean that's just not really going to happen without a large scale online poker in the US. Just because poker is a very American game, and that's where a lot of the recreational players come from, which is too bad, but that's just kind of how it's played out with the legislation.
You're so right about those free rolls. That's how I got my start when I was in college. Just happened to be given some money on a site after winning a free roll, and all of a
Oh man,
sudden,
I got
I'm
a
covering tournaments for a living.
yeah, I got a free roll story for you. I don't know if you have heard of the name Nick Rampone. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been kind of retired from poker for a while, but how he got started in poker was back in like 2007 or so, maybe 2006. He was in college, and his favorite thing to do, like him and his buddies, after school, he played basketball too. So after school and after basketball practice, they would come home and play the full tilt free roll, which was like 3,000
Yep,
players. Yep, and you'd win like $8 if you won it.
I
And
remember that.
yeah, so they would play that every day. It was like the thing they did, and he like got some money in it, and like he worked his way up the ladder, and he eventually had $1 million on full tilt, and he never deposited a dime. All from like playing those free rolls was how he got his start.
From 0 to 7 figures. That's nice.
Yep.
There's the famous story of Annette Oberstad also got her
Mm-hmm.
start online with a free roll, and then she went on and won the WSP main event in Europe.
Yeah, she
Let's
was a
talk
legend. I
about.
wish.
Well, she lives in Vegas here.
Does she?
Yeah, she's a Vegas local, but I think she has shifted gears career-wise these days.
Yeah, she seemed to not like. I mean, I don't know her personally at all, but she seemed to just kind of drift away from poker as she made some money, which was too bad. She was a legendary player.
Yeah, back in the day, Net 15.
Yep,
The
she was
age
super young, right? Like,
started at.
yeah.
Yeah, what about you? Let's shift gears to you, because I do know you got your start in high school and you were playing online. I mean, the statute of limitations is up, so you could admit to that crime.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't even really play underage for very long, maybe for like a year. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of in that same mold of where never had more than $50 online or something, and was playing $1, $2 tournaments, and more or less for fun. I had an older brother who was, I mean, I was 18 at the time. He must have been 21 or 22, who was actually starting to make some money, and that's what motivated me to get into it. And yeah, I mean, started real small. Took a long time to get traction. Obviously, being a high schooler, and I was doing some other stuff as well, so it's not like I spent all my time on it. But yeah, I mean, just played real small. Started reading 2+2. This was back in like the Poker X Factor days for training sites. So I remember having a Poker X Factor account and watching all those videos.
Now you mentioned the other stuff you were getting into, because before poker took off, you were a standout athlete over there in Bend, Oregon. Not quite, Steve Prefontaine, right? Not a distance runner, but
No shot.
baseball was. I mean, you look like a baseball player. I don't know if that's offensive to you, but you
I mean,
have the
makes sense. It's
stereotypical baseball look.
yeah. I mean, makes sense. It's what I kind of dedicated my life to for a lot of years, But yeah, I mean, I was pretty serious about baseball. The last, the tail 3 years of high school, and then the few years I spent in college. But in high school was, from like 16 through 18, there was a lot of, traveling for like prospect camps and showcase type stuff. So it was really important to me, and yeah, it was definitely the thing that I cared about the most by far. And yeah, after that,
Well, before we get to college, did you have any like crazy standout games in high school? I found the website, like a prospect site, that had some grainy footage of you in the outfield, and it said you were, one of the top players in the state at your position. Any glory stories from those days?
yeah, well, for state wise, I was like first team all state, which was cool. Oh, sorry about that noise. First team all state as an outfielder, but I guess the kind of most ridiculous but funny baseball story is I had 2 grand slams in 1 inning one time. But
Oh, that poor pitcher! That poor pitcher.
yeah, that we roasted a few pitchers that game for sure. I remember we put up like, that was my senior year of high school, and we put up like 15 runs in the first inning versus this poor team. But And it's brutal because, in high school you play 7-inning games. And there's a mercy rule for, if you're up by 10 runs or more after the fifth, the game's over. But it was the first inning and we were up like 15-0 or whatever. So they still had to play out 5 innings to get to the mercy rule. But yeah, that was kind of a hilarious game to have 8 RBIs in 1 inning.
Was it just a matter of this guy putting beach balls over the plate, or did you guys have get a tell on him or something? Like, what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, they just weren't very good. They had no pitching, and yeah, I mean, they just couldn't get anybody out. They walked a lot of guys, and then couldn't have anybody who could really get ground balls or strike anybody out. So we just roasted them.
There was a note on your prospect page said you were a switch hitter with power, which is not super common, right? Aren't most switch hitters like the slap style, get on base style guys?
Yeah, for sure. I was what they call a 5-tool player, which is kind of like you kind of do it all. I wasn't particularly great in any. Well, I was fine, but for a high schooler for sure. But the 5 tools are hit for average, hit for power, run fast. God, it's been a while. Hit for average, hit for power, athletic, play good defense, and have a good arm. I think those are the 5 tools or whatever. So it's kind of just I was considered, I was a pretty decent sized guy. I was 6'2", $185, decent sized high schooler, but I was still decently athletic, could move and hit for power and kind of hit for average. So yeah, that was probably what was appealing to me about me as a prospect for sure, is we say prospects having a high ceiling. That's a term they use a lot. It's just, how good can that person get? And I think I had a pretty high ceiling, and
they wanted to put some meat on the bones and see what they could do with you, huh?
For sure. I was so skinny, man. I needed to get bigger. Which was kind of brutal because, at the time it was so hard for me to gain weight and I just didn't know how. And much later on, I mean, only in the last few years, what I figured out was that if you just drink a ton of calories, not booze, but when I must have been 28, I was still, $185 or so. And I started making these crazy shakes with peanut butter, protein. I would put olive oil in them, put some oatmeal in them, just these 1,500 calorie shakes and drink 3 of them a day. And I got huge. I got up to 205 very easily. But I wish I would have known that in high school. I would have been a lot better baseball player.
I had no issues drinking my calories on my freshman year of college.
Yeah, sure.
That was very easy for me. It was a freshman 40, I think, is what they called it.
That'll do it to you.
Who was your guy growing up? I mean, you're in Oregon. Are you a Seattle fan?
Yeah. I mean, I was I was more of an Oakland fan as far as baseball goes, but I've always been a diehard Oregon Ducks fan for football and basketball. They recently got baseball in the last 10 years or so, but yeah, that was my thing. But for who guided me as a kid, I had 2 older brothers, and them being around was good. And not only that, my oldest brother had a good friend group that was always around too. So I had these guys that were 4 years older that gave a lot of guidance as far as sports, and because they were really good athletes too. And they it was really nice to have a whole group of. It was kind of just having 6 or 7 older brothers and really learn a lot from them.
Yeah. So you get recruited to go to the College of Southern Nevada, right here in Vegas. Very good proximity for poker. But obviously, the career doesn't get off the ground because you're in surgery the whole time, right? 3 surgeries.
Yeah, that was a bummer. I had elbow problems for my last 2 years of high school and had never gotten them fixed, and finally went under the knife first year of college and had to do that back-to-back years because the first surgery didn't fix it. But yeah, so that was basically how my college career played out, was just being hurt a lot, being frustrated a lot, and not too much positivity going on.
Now, were you on the team the same time as Bryce Harper?
He was there the year after I left. If I would have been one year younger, I could have played with him.
Well, yeah, had you recovered for sure. Well, I mean, what's your mindset during that time in school? Are you just like, hey, at least they're taking care of my medical issues? Or is it more like devastation at your dream kind of dying?
Well, while I was actually hurt, I kind of just always assumed naively that I would come back, be 100% healthy, and like everything would work out, which, you know, I imagine is how most 19, 20-year-olds would view that situation. And that's what, like, when it did finally end, and after the third surgery, and I was just like, all right, I just can't do this anymore. It hurts. Like, it's just over. It was really devastating, like you were saying. And yeah, I mean, just having this kind of picture in my head of I mean, I don't know about if I would have gotten to the big leagues, but at least had a couple years of like good college baseball where, had a chance to at least give it a shot, and never getting that chance was pretty devastating.
But you did have poker during this time, right? I mean, you're not just sitting there staring at the wall wishing you could be out in the field. Obviously, your rehab time includes some time in front of the poker screen as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was super fortunate, and I'm super grateful for having that play out the way it did, because yeah, I just had something to occupy my time and my mind. And even towards the end of it, I was as into poker as I was into baseball pretty much. So yeah, it really makes me feel for everybody who went through the same thing or similar thing than I did baseball wise, and had nothing to fall back on, because those people, I mean, their whole identity is just kind of gone, right? Like, they're just crushed. And but yeah, I was super fortunate to just have poker, and it was pretty seamless, like I didn't have any time really in between. I just kind of went immediately into playing poker full time, and the rest is history.
You said in an interview that by the time you were done with school, you were making at least $500 a week just playing sit and goes while you're in college. Were you ever tempted to become a live player? I mean, you're literally playing online poker in Vegas. Most people who play online poker don't have the option to go down the street to the casino.
Yeah, I never really considered it. I mean, every once in a while I would go play live, and it was fun, and I enjoyed it. I'm like, oh, these games are great. Go play like 2-5 at a Vegas casino, and be like, oh, I could do this for sure. But then this was at a time when I was playing sit and go, so I was playing like 20 tables a day, or at a time, like 20 25 tabling, and the variance was so low. Like, it wasn't rare, but like, you could expect to win almost every day. Like, you probably won like maybe 70% of sessions, and almost every month was a winner. You know what I mean? So like, the variance was extremely low, and going from this very low variance part of poker to like a live cash game where you play like maybe 10 important, like, huge hands a night, and it's just so variant. It was just like, I couldn't do it. It was too variant for me.
What about the speed of the game? Did you find it to be too slow?
Yeah, I definitely like the action of playing a ton of tables all the time, and I did find it kind of boring, and it definitely hurt my play to play live when you can only one table. Like, I would play way too wide and spewy. So yeah, it just wasn't a good fit in any way.
What about the series or just random tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play any live until what? So I started playing, like, I was, more or less earning a living online in like 2010. And then I didn't play any live for at least a year or two. And the main reason was like, the stakes were higher. I was a guy playing $20-$30 average buy-in online. Was just playing on my own money or whatever. I could have like sold action to live stuff, but I couldn't just hop into a 1K buy-in at the World Series. It was just too much for me. So I would, I'd hoped to play a bunch of World Series stuff eventually, but I just didn't have the money for it, and didn't want to get backed.
And then obviously Black Friday comes along and kind of forces you to get out of town.
Right. Yeah. I immediately went up to, well, not immediately. I spent that summer in Vegas. So I guess it wasn't that long, because that was summer of 2011. I remember playing the World Series there. So this is just a year between me playing online and playing live. But
That
But
was
yeah,
a weird summer though, because there was two attitudes in poker that summer. One was like YOLO, this is our last shot. Our money's is locked up. Let's just go for it. And the other one was, oh, all this money is going to come back to us. I'm going to go buy it from people on pennies on the dollar. Blah blah blah. So you held on to your money.
yeah, I mean that was a crazy situation because so many people had money on full tilt. Like that, there was just I know a bunch of people that had like 80-90% of their net worth locked up on full tilt. And yeah, I mean for me, I had a bunch of my own money. I mean, it's not like I had a ton at the time or anything, but for me, it was most of what I had was locked online. So I ended up selling like a big package that summer. I think I don't think I was backed full time, but remember, selling a bunch and just kind of being in dire straits as far as money goes. And then when I moved out of the country, I actually did get backed full time.
So you end up settling in Mexico, where this is Playa, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
You lived there for 4 years, and you said didn't really get much better at poker. Kind of just spent your time partying, going through the motions. Is that accurate?
Yeah. The first year especially was pretty reckless. I mean, it was an awesome time. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it was like you talked about being a freshman in college. It was a very similar feel for that, except you're on a beach. It was a fun time.
You said you went broke during that time. Was that particularly stressful, or did you just have enough connections in the poker world that you knew you'd be all right?
No, that was stressful for sure. It was, a situation where like I had a lot of makeup. I was back to the time and not playing well because I wasn't taking it that seriously. And yeah, it was stressful. I had to really have kind of a like a big moment later in my career to really like snap me out of that and actually get me down the right path. But yeah, it was tough. It was a tough period for sure.
What was your favorite thing about Mexico?
It was fun. It was fun how there was a good group down there. There was at one point there had to have been over 100, poker player expats. So it was, a lot of like camaraderie. The social life was fun. I mean, you'd see people around all the time, and it was just fun to hang out with. Everyone was pretty easygoing. Got along with a lot of guys, and yeah, it was just fun to be around.
Now we fast forward to May 2016, or just the summer of 2016 in general, when all of a sudden you're starting to dip your toe into some live events and get some success. What went into this decision?
Yeah, so that was when I had some success online and was starting to actually get some money underneath me, and as of this time was online MTTs just weren't quite as good. They've kind of just constantly been in decline, at least up until recently. And live MTTs were great. And I just started to make the effort to actually travel and get around to, like LAPC, Bay 101, all the Florida stuff. And just seeing, like these are really good tournaments and the stakes are reasonable for me now. Like I can actually be in there and weather some of the variants and do what I need to do. So yeah, I mean, it was just once I kind of got in there, and fortunately it went pretty well at first. I was kind of just hooked and was convinced this was the best way to make the most money.
It's interesting that coming from a competitive background, that you weren't drawn to tournaments right away. The glory of winning a tournament. At the end of a tournament, somebody gets a trophy. I'm sure you have plenty of baseball trophies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to the guy who grinds 20 sit and goes at a time and is just, seeing his hourly eke up. Is it all just about the cash and the hourly, or is it do you like the glory too?
No, the glory is a thing for sure, and I think anybody who says they care nothing about that is kind of lying. But Early on for me, I mean, the biggest barrier to me becoming a tournament player was simply money. Like tournaments were expensive, especially ones you won trophies for, and I was just playing much lower stakes. So yeah, that was just the way for me to do it, and especially when I was working like a $2,000-$3,000 bankroll playing those small sit and goes. Like I just couldn't afford to play even a bunch of $50 tournaments and lose my bankroll. So it was just strictly a matter of bankroll management.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a high wire act there. If you're playing that many tables on that short of a bankroll, for sure.
Exactly, and that's how I did it. So fortunately made it out.
So May 2016, you win the WPT Spring Classic in Canada. That's your first major tournament score. And then a couple months later, you get over $500,000 for finishing second at the Seminole Hard Rock Poker Open. And then a year later, you're in the high rollers. So that's a rapid rise up the ranks. Can you talk about that progression, from just first dipping your toe to all of a sudden being in the nosebleeds?
Yeah, it was rapid for sure, and a huge influx of cash in that short of a period certainly doesn't hurt anybody. But yeah, my good buddy Jason Kuhn, who I've talked about before, was high roller reg at the time, and as my bankroll grew, and I was we were kind of starting to play more of the same tournaments. I mean, I wasn't in any high rollers yet, but he had been somebody playing the live tournaments for a while, so I started just spending more time around him. We got closer and started like studying together. Not that we had studied together before, we'd go back years, but yeah, we just got closer, and he would say like, I play these tournaments, like there's worse players than you in these fields. You should be in there. And yeah, I mean, just through his advice and game selection, I just kind of slowly at first eked my way into the high rollers. And a big part of that too was that at the Aria, you get rake free on your first bullet. So you could just come in and play, a 25K with no rake. And does huge things for you as like a new player who's pushing a small edge. So yeah, just slowly got into it that way.
So did you know Jason before the two of you finished heads up in that Florida tournament?
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time. We first met each other in like 2010 or 11, I think, through Nick Rampone, the free roll story guy who I'd mentioned before. Nick and Jason were pretty good friends, and I had mutual friends with Nick, so we all hooked up that way.
That must have been surreal then, getting heads up for $1 million prize.
Yeah, that was nuts. Like we joked about it the whole tournament because we had big stacks. We were like 1 and 2 in chips for like a long time, like from like 50 down to we both had a bunch of chips, and we're just like, this is nuts. We might get heads up in this tournament, and for it to actually play out, it was pretty wild.
Is there any like bragging rights? Does he bring that up anytime about how that's the time he got you?
Nah, not really. Neither of us are that type. We're not too competitive against each other. We were just both happy for each other.
It's interesting that Jason kind of encouraged you to get into the high rollers. A couple episodes ago, I interviewed Daniel DeVoris, who has a very similar story to you in that he didn't really play live tournaments until about 2015 and is now one of the high roller crushers. And he said he was nudged into playing the high rollers by Stephen Chidwick. Like basically walked by and said, why aren't you in this? You should be in this. It's ridiculous that you're not playing. I'm wondering what are all these high rollers doing getting all these good players to join them? What's the motivation there? Obviously, other than keeping the player pool up.
I mean, I think it just comes down to being friends, like if like I know those two are good friends, and I'm good friends with both of them as well. It's just like if you have people around you that you like, you want to see them do well, and it's just by having one extra good player in the field that's not really cutting into your own bottom line in any non-negligible way, So yeah, I mean, it's just about friends wanting their friends to do well.
I'm just saying, why isn't this recruitment happening with the whales, with the businessmen? Let's go meet them in the hotel lobbies and say, hey, you should jump in this tournament. What are you doing? Why aren't you in this tournament?
Well, fortunately for us, some of the people that run the tours do such a good job of that, and it's just like they just do a great job of getting people there and treating people right. So
Right.
that responsibility hasn't really fallen on the players too much. Thank God, because I would be horrible at that.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
All right. We have some rapid fire questions if you'd like to start.
Let's do it.
Okay. Who is the best player that we've never heard of? So just somebody that doesn't get the credit they deserve.
Best player we've never heard of. Man, I mean, everybody that I know a lot about their poker game that I could really be qualified to comment on kind of is known in the high roller circuit. But I would say my makeshift answer to this is that someone who doesn't get enough credit for being like one of the best of all time is Tim Adams. He's like that dude's
Right.
just like absolutely elite, like one of the best to ever do it. And for some reason I feel like he's not like at the front of the conversation that much.
We just had him on the cover a little while ago. An honor you just had. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But yeah, Tim is obviously super crusher, and he does it very quietly. He just kind of, just sits back and collects the money.
Yeah, very humble guy. Awesome dude. He's a good friend of mine, and that guy is like just such a pleasure to be around. He's just a top tier guy, personality wise.
He's got to be number 2 on Canada's list, right behind Negreanu.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, he's been crushing forever. So, I mean, Tim's been playing high stakes since they started. Since like the first. I bet Tim was in the first 25K ever. I bet.
Yep, he is second, right in front of Sam Greenwood, who's coming for him.
Yeah. Both of those guys are going to rack up a ton of money when the live circuit reopens.
You are not Canadian, but if you were, you would be in 10th place all time.
All right, right behind who? Who do I got to set my eyes on?
I think you gotta pass Peter Jetton.
Peter Jetton. All right, I got my eyes on him.
He's busy over in Macau.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, do you look at those things, the rankings, the earnings list?
I mean, every once in a while, like look at it. It's kind of cool, right? It's not something that I would consider a major motivator, but like we talked about before, like anybody who says that stuff means absolutely nothing to them is probably lying. So yeah, I mean, it's cool to look every once in a while, see how I'm doing, and it would be. I kind of wish I was from not like being from Oregon. It's not like there's a lot of people to run down on the list because it's a smaller state. But yeah, sure. Every once in a while, I'll like look at who's in front of me and hope to pass them.
Okay, now I'm curious. I got to see Oregon's bunny list because off the top of my head, I can't even think of.
You know who I passed, which is hilarious, is Annie Duke. I think she's the number 2.
Oh man, I forgot she was from Oregon. All right, James Romero is in second, actually.
Oh yeah.
WPT win.
Yep, I know James.
And Ite, Esther Taylor's on the list. Yeah, you're right. Oregon has got is slim pickings poker players.
Yeah, at least no real like high roller rigs or anything, so it's not as.
Look who I see in 16th, Nick Rampone.
Oh, there he is. 16th. That's surprising that he. Well, I guess he never really had much live success. He got screwed out of a bunch of money. I remember this real well. He was back when he was playing a lot. We were traveling the circuit together. This must have been 2016 or so. We were at Barcelona, and there was at EPT Barcelona, and he plays just like this massive pot with like maybe 25-30 players left for like this huge chip lead where he has like 95% equity. They get it on the turn. He has Jack 10 on like a Jack 10 XX versus King Jack, and the guy rivers the king, and it was like 1.5 million to first, and he would have just had a huge chip lead. I felt so bad for him.
Oof. Well, that brings me to my next question. What about your most painful close call? Because obviously, you have some wins here, 25K wins. Obviously, you have the WPT win, but there's a lot of seconds and thirds in there. I'm wondering if any of them were particularly painful.
Yeah, that's an easy one. It wasn't a second or a third or anything, and I didn't even run particularly bad either. But when I direct bubbled the first super high roller bowl that I played,
that'll do it.
Yeah, that was kind of the only time I've ever really had a emotional reaction like that to poker. Not that I didn't make a scene or anything, but I was just like really crushed when I busted. And yeah, that's easy
That
question.
was the 300K buy-in.
Yep, that must have
So-
been 2000. That must have been 2018, spring of 2018, I think.
And a min cash would have been what, like 500K?
600K, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's almost $1 million swing. That's insane.
Yeah, it was a nasty one.
So how do you self-medicate after a situation like that?
Have a beer. Not too
That's
many.
it?
I'm not a problem drinker, but yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty introverted guy, and when I'm in a bad mood, like just kind of being alone and like have a beer or two and just kind of chill. Maybe watch some Netflix or something. But yeah, I'm not too bad with letting that stuff linger so much. I think it's a big part of my personality is just kind of being even keeled and go with the flow a lot. So I've never had too much of a problem with that kind of thing.
Do you want to play right away after something like that happens, or do you like to take a little time off?
I definitely like to take a little time off, and that's not only from just having like a brutal bubble, but whenever I play like a tournament, I'm always trying to like I almost as lame as it sounds, I almost like preparing to play poker as much as I like playing poker. So whenever I play a tournament like that, I'm itching to like review how I played and study and get ready for the next one.
Yeah, you did mention how much you like the work of poker. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, to play high rollers these days, it does require an immense amount of behind the scenes work. Can you estimate that for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, it's with the state of poker as it is now, with how good the training software has come. You have like PioSolver and MonkerSolver and all that. It's just you kind of have the answers of how you should play, right? And I mean, being a great poker player is not only about learning solver mechanics and trying to replicate, computer play, but there is exploits and there's tons of human stuff that goes into it, live reads and all that and everything. But as far as, the lion's share of the work is studying solvers and trying to, learn equilibrium strategies and stuff. And that's like, it just takes tons of work because the game is so complicated. Like, it's like people say how, like people who kind of don't know what they're talking about say like, oh, I know that a solver would do this, but I'm gonna like exploit and do that. It's like, no, you don't. Like the best players in the world are nowhere close to playing like perfectly. Like they don't know what the solver would do in every spot, and like trying to figure it out is extremely hard. And the best, smartest players in the world are not perfect at it. So people that kind of like just say like, oh yeah, that stuff's easy, you just like play tight. No, that's not the case at all. So yeah, tons and tons of hours of trying to learn about how computers play.
What about the biggest pot you've ever won or lost?
Biggest pot I've ever won or lost. Well, it's gonna have to be in kind of a tournament context because I haven't played huge cash games, but I would say the Super High Roller Bowl Bahamas last October. We were at the final table. This was $5 million to first. Daniel DeVoris won that one. We were 6-handed, maybe 7-handed, and I play a pot versus Eric Seidel where I flop a set and he flops a straight, and I don't improve. And it was it was just an enormous pot. I was like real short afterwards, and it was the dollar amount that the amount of EV that pot contained in it was enormous. So that was a pretty brutal one.
Well, you did at least cash in that one, not bubbling, for $1 million. So that's something.
Yeah, that's a plus.
Nice little, a nice cool $1 million to dry your tears.
Yeah, there's actually, so we'll go back to Jason Kuhn. We had our great day where we got heads up in that Florida tournament. This was our dark day together because we were both in that tournament. We came into the final table. I can't remember if it was 6, 7, or 8 handed or whatever, but Jason and I were 1 and 2 in chips. I was chip lead. Jason was second. And like first orbit of the day, Jason plays an enormous pot where he flops a set versus Daniel Dvoris, who has a flush draw and open ender. So they play an enormous pot. Jason loses. And then, an orbit or two later, I play the giant pot versus Seidel and I lose. So we go from being 1 and 2 in chips, and I think we got like 7th and 6th or 6th and 7th or something.
Yeah. Oh, you got 5th.
Okay.
You
So
did,
I think we got 5th and 7th.
That tournament could not have gone any better for Daniel.
Mm.
Bonomo went out first, then Jason Kuhn, then Steve O'Dwyer, then you, then Seidel. The stars aligned.
Yeah, and I mean, not to take anything away from Daniel, he's absolutely one of the best players in the world. But yeah, he was riding high that day.
What about the best swap or piece you've ever had of anybody?
Best swap or piece I've had. I won't say any names because I don't know if they would want to, but I had a situation where we were playing a tournament. It was a 50K, and it was one of these tournaments where it was super short. Like I think the average, I ended up like bubbling or like close to bubbling or something, but the average on the bubble or at the final table was like 12 big blinds. Like everyone was just so short, and like the difference between getting 7th and winning where it was so low or was so narrow, and it was a big tournament. It was like $1 million to first or something, and I had a swap who had like 6 big blinds with 8 left or something and ended up winning it for $1 million. So that was the best come up I've had, I think.
Nice. Yeah. What about the weirdest place you've ever played poker for money?
Weirdest place. What was weird was I mean, not so much. It was a great place to play poker, but the whole setup was just kind of strange. Was in Choctaw, Oklahoma. How you just drive out into the middle of nowhere and there's this giant casino and just like middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, and there's like this big WPT that is going on in there. That was kind of strange.
I've been to Choctaw a few times, and it's always surprising because it looks like what you'd find in Vegas, like a big resort.
Right, exactly. It's just in the middle of nowhere.
It literally is in the middle of nowhere. That's crazy.
Poker is great there too. All the people from Dallas come up and play. That's a cool tournament.
Let's see. What was your worst job before poker?
Well, fortunately, I didn't have to grind around too much and through bad jobs. Pretty much the only jobs I had before poker was I worked at a golf course doing member services, which the guys who just like take care of bags and stuff. So that was fine. I enjoyed that. And then before that, I was a lifeguard, which was a fine job, but I remember my boss was just a huge asshole, so that sucked. Yeah.
Where you were lifeguarding in Oregon?
Yeah, this was when I was like 17 in my hometown, just at an athletic club in town.
That seems better than being a lifeguard in Vegas.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. This place in Bend was, I mean, it was like never busy, never more than like 10 people in the pool or whatever. It was super easy, but I just couldn't stand the boss.
You never had an emergency? No reason to dive off the tower?
Nope, as bad as I wanted to. Well, not that anyone get hurt, but I wanted to Baywatch in there. But never.
None of the young kids tried to pull a Wendy Peppercorn on you?
I mean, I don't even remember ever telling anyone to do anything. I don't remember ever like saying a word to anybody.
You had no authority. They didn't even give you a whistle.
Yeah. I was a piece of furniture, more or less.
All right. What was your largest non-poker wager?
Largest. I actually bet.
At all?
No, I'm not like too much into gambling. I mean, I like to bet on sports and stuff for fun, but never like big. But I did bet 20K on Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, just because I was told it was sharp. This was like, I don't know if you remember that, but on Bovada, the the line was just like everyone was hammering like McGregor for some reason, and Mayweather was only like minus 300 or something. You know, it was like when he was just such a massive favorite. So, you know, I have some friends that work that are like bettors and stuff, and they're like, yeah, this is like such a good bet, just like hammer it. So yeah, that was a really stressful situation, but yeah, we won and worked out.
I'm trying to remember who Mayweather fought before that. There was also high profile, because I also bet Mayweather, and it's just like everyone basically said it was the easiest bet. Anytime Mayweather was fighting, it's the easiest bet in town.
There was actually a wild story about that. When I was in Mexico, I didn't have any money at the time, but it was a really, really good bet. Was it Mayweather Canelo? It must have been. Yeah, this was like, it must have been 2014 maybe, when I was, you know, in Playa and didn't have any money. But because Canelo was Mexican, you know, the book at this bar, the sports bar we went to, was like a little bar with a that you could make bets, and it was like even money or something. Like the line on Pinnacle and all this stuff, it was like Mayweather like minus 250, but like everyone wanted to bet on the Mexican because we're in Mexico, so it was like even money. But I didn't have any money at the time and didn't get on to it, and that was a win for Mayweather.
It was Pacquiao. That's the one I.
Oh yeah,
printing. Yeah. Everyone loves Pacquiao and hated Mayweather, so there was an inflation on that side.
Yeah, I remember how big that fight was. That was the biggest. That was like the most hype fight in a long time. Like I remember that being just crazy how big it was.
We were watching it at a friend's house, and some people were watching it upstairs, and we were watching it downstairs. And the downstairs crew was so convinced that Mayweather won easily, which he did. But the upstairs crew came down and was like, "Can you believe the robbery?" It's like, oh, I guess it depends on who you're watching it with.
Yeah.
They can swear everything. Anyway, do you have a celebrity doppelganger, or somebody that people have told you look like growing up?
Oh man, I'm way too ugly to have celebrities look like me.
Ugly? You think that you qualify as ugly in poker?
Probably.
I disagree. I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna put you in the top 10% of all poker players.
Wow, that's better than winning any other tournament. I'll take that.
Yeah, first of all, you don't wear the same hat every single day like a lot of
people. That's true. You get a lot of guys strolling into the casino in the exact same clothes every day. That's
same
pretty
hoodie
brutal.
every single day. So
always like really, really baggy Jordan basketball shorts with flip flops on. That's the poker look, isn't it?
Your beard looks very well groomed. So
fair enough.
I don't know what it looks like these days. Maybe you're a mountain man now.
I'm actually clean shaved right now. It feels weird. Rarely do it, but
hold on. There is a photo of you clean shaven online. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You have a chin. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. I just got like, I remember first growing the beard, and I mean this was like 5 years ago, and just got a lot of good feedback. Sorry, I'm a beard guy for life now, I guess. And it's good being a bald guy too, you know, having no hair, the beard works out pretty well.
Let me tell you, I am losing it all up top and not gaining it fast enough on the face.
Oh yeah.
I am patchy all over. It is not a good look. I'm gonna have to step up my hat game like you have.
Get some of the what's that stuff called? The like fake beard stuff that you spray on your face to fill in the patches.
I've seen videos. It looks like it comes out of a spray paint can.
Oh, it looks disgusting. I'm sure it's poisonous too.
Oh man, I'm not vain enough, but I am. So we'll see. What was your biggest splurge after a win or like a big score?
Well, when I first had like a big tournament score as a young kid, this must have been 2010. I remember winning the Sunday second chance on Full Tilt or on Stars for like 50K. And this is when, you know, I probably had like a 4 or 5K bankroll and never really had more than, you know, a few thousand. And I remember buying, and which was retarded. I bought an Audi TT, like this like little sports car for like 15-20K or something. Like just spend almost half my money on it.
You spent half your bankroll on a car?
Oh yeah. Well, that was 21-year-old me. And I mean, I actually love the card, but it was just the dumbest thing ever, and that was a lesson learned.
There are so many great stories in poker about people. They win in a tournament and they immediately go to the dealership with cash.
Oh
I think actually it's a great story from Noah Schwartz on this podcast. If you go listen, for the listeners to go back and listen to, he did the same thing. I think he won the Sunday Million and walked into a dealership for a Range Rover.
Yeah, it's just so ridiculous how, I mean, I just look back on how I was as a 20, 21-year-old kid and just cringe.
All right. Did you have a poker player that you looked up to coming up? Somebody that you wanted to play with?
Well, not somebody that I wanted to play with so much, but the person I looked up to the most was Nick Rampone. You know, at the time he was, when I was first getting into it in 08, 09 or whatever, was when he was like the top dog or one of the top dogs in heads up sit and goes. And you know, like I told you a story before about running his bankroll up from 0 to whatever. And yeah, he was just an easy guy to look up to with how good he was and where he came from.
Pure Cash 25.
Yep, that's him.
Let's see here. Do you have a nemesis? Someone that you can't beat or that it feels like they hold over you?
Who I feel like I can just never win a hand against, and I mean I love the guy, and you know he's a friend, he's a good friend of mine for sure. But like I just can never, I feel like I just never beat Ike in a pot. Like every time I play a pot for him, I feel like I just lose.
Axton.
Yeah, and I mean by no means a nemesis or anything, but I just feel he has my number, and I just can't get over on him.
But you don't think that's actually true. You just think it's variance, obviously. You don't play with these guys enough to feel like somebody has you dead to rights, obviously.
I mean, I don't think the results that are like in my mind are from strictly him being better than me, but I certainly think he's a much better poker player than me. Like the guy's like, you know, absolutely one of the smartest people I've ever met and has incredible poker mind. And yeah, I have no qualms about admitting that Ike is a better poker player than me.
To reach out to Ike. He did say yes to this podcast, but we left it at that after, before COVID. So I'll have to reach back out to him.
Best guy ever too. Ike's an all around great dude.
Oh, are you superstitious at all?
I would say like I find myself doing some superstitious things every once in a while, just kind of subconsciously. But
Let's say as a baseball player, you kind of have to be, right?
Yeah, I mean that was a pretty big thing in baseball, right? But I never like got to play pro ball where that stuff kind of hilariously works its way into the you know, culture. But being a younger guy, it wasn't as much of a thing. But yeah, there was kind of the funny just stuff going on there from like you'd see in movies or hear about or whatever.
So you don't have like a routine when you fire up the laptop for online poker, or when you're heading down to the casino, you need a certain drink or some stuff like that.
No, not really. Not the things I'll find myself doing is like if I'm playing online and maybe I'll like win a big flip or something, maybe I'll put that song on repeat if I'm listening to a song or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little crazy in there.
stay in the right headspace, you know what I mean?
There you go. All right. Speaking of music, do you believe in headphones at the table?
Yeah, for sure. And the biggest thing with headphones for me is just focusing, you know, like playing good poker is so much about being maximum focus. So if you need to like tune people out that are having a conversation, or maybe somebody at your table is like being really annoying, I just have to have headphones, you know what I mean?
And what are you listening to?
Well, at the poker table, I usually listen to something like real mellow, not too distracting, like some like acoustic guitar type stuff, maybe like a Jack Johnson or like something like that. Even Tom Petty's like soft rock type stuff is kind of my go-to at the poker table.
You don't want to get anything that'll have you raising.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to put on some metal and just start 3-betting half the deck.
All right. Biggest pet peeve at the table?
when people either eat something or put their hand in their mouth when they're at the poker table. Like sometimes, every once in a while, you'll get someone who's such an asshole that they'll eat chicken wings at the table while they're touching all their cards and stuff. So that's when people have dirty hands and they're doing it right in front of you. That drives me crazy.
Well, let me tell you, I think you're going to like Poker 2.0 when it comes back from COVID because people are way more mindful about germs these days.
Oh, yeah. They should just force everybody to wear rubber gloves.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be seeing people eating at the table anytime soon.
I'm excited.
What is your bold prediction for poker's future?
Maybe this is just wishful thinking, but with sports betting being legalized nationwide, I'm going to predict that poker will be as well, and we'll go back to virtually the glory days where we can play nationwide, maybe even worldwide online poker with the US in the market, and those days of running it back up from $0 will be back.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I sure
I
hope
like
so.
playing with New Jersey residents and Vegas residents, but yeah, it would be nice to get a little more.
Oh yeah, I mean, just imagine Sunday Million type thing coming back where play $200 and win $300K just by sitting in your house in Oklahoma or wherever you are.
It'd be nice. All right, we end the podcast the same way every time with a question from the random question generator. Ready?
Let's do it.
Boom, 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 boom. All right, have you ever fainted?
Oof.
Or been passed out, I guess.
I actually did faint one time. I remember this because my brothers would not stop making fun of me about it. When I was probably like, I don't know, 8 years old or something, we went to like Disneyland, or what's the other one that has the crazy roller coasters down there? Six Flags. We went to Six Flags.
Okay.
When I was like 8 years old. My brothers were like 9 and 10 or 9 and 11 or something, and I remember going on a roller coaster that was just like you were facing down, and the three of us were just like sitting next to each other, and it'd pull you up backwards, so you're just facing straight down, and just like free falls you, just drops you. And I remember fainting on that, and they just made fun of me for like weeks.
Oof. I have the sympathy for that 8-year-old as somebody who suffers from vertigo and can't do the rides anymore.
Oh God, yeah. Do you get motion sickness like in boats and cars?
I was fine until 3 years ago. I'm telling you, I lived my entire life as a roller coaster nut. We went to go to Disney. I grew up in South Florida, so we grew up in Disney and would go up every 6 months to Orlando and do all the roller coasters. Never had an issue with it. All of a sudden, boom, it hits me, and now I can't even be near a cliff edge without feeling like I'm falling. So, yeah, it's not the greatest, but they make those.
The thing I'm worried about is I like to. I go scuba dive. I don't get to do it too much anymore. But when I was in Playa, I went scuba diving a bunch, and you'd see people with motion sickness from the boat, and I never got any of that, and it just looks so miserable. So I really hope I don't develop that.
It is miserable. It's awful. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're in good shape. You're athletic. You should be fine for a while.
Yeah, hopefully I fade that one for life.
You don't get on that poker diet.
Oh, no way.
And you're friends with Jason. He won't let you get that way anyway. So
yeah, he'll crack the whip if I start getting fat.
I remember being at a party and Jason was talking about how many calories were in a certain vodka.
Yeah.
So that's how you know he's dedicated.
Oh yeah, he's airtight with the health. It's pretty sick. He probably knows enough to be a certified health professional.
He knows a lot, that's for sure. Anyway, Seth, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing the stories.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
That is the show. Thank you once again to Seth for coming on and sharing his poker origin story. You can learn more about Seth's game at Run It Once, where he posts training videos featuring high-stakes MTTs, hand reviews, or breakdowns of specific topics such as single-raised pots versus the big blind. You can follow him on Twitter at SDavies22. You can also follow us on Twitter at CardPlayerMedia or at poker_stories. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you haven't already done so, give us 5 stars and say some nice words in the review box at the bottom of your podcast app. Let us know you did so with an email to pokerstories@cardplayer.com, and we'll give you a free digital subscription to Card Player Magazine. Thanks for listening.